Evelyn, thank you for the 10 years of living rent-free in your house. Chloe's voice cut through the air of the dining room like a slap in the face. I was serving dessert, my famous caramel cheesecake, when she dropped those words with a smile that chilled my blood. While you paid the electric bill, the water, the groceries, the internet, absolutely everything, I saved every single dime of my paycheck. Do you know what I did with that money, Evelyn? She leaned forward, her eyes glinting with malice. I bought my own house, a beautiful modern place just for Lucas and me. And now, we are leaving. We are leaving you here, all alone in this old money pit. Oh, and one more thing. We are never speaking to you again. We are cutting all contact, forever. My son was sitting right next to her, nodding his head, looking proud, as if his wife had just announced she had won a Nobel Prize. I just stood there holding the cheesecake platter, feeling the world shift beneath my feet. My name is Evelyn. I am 63 years old, and for a full decade, I was the biggest doormat in the world. But that Sunday night, at my own dining table, in front of my own son and that viper he called a wife, something inside me broke. Or maybe, finally, something got fixed. This is my story. A story about how a mother's love can turn into a weakness, and how that weakness can be exploited until you are left with nothing. But it is also the story of how an older woman, tired, humiliated, found the strength to stand up and strike back. Because sometimes, justice does not arrive on its own. Sometimes, you have to manufacture it yourself. I was always a simple woman. I worked for 40 years as an elementary school teacher, teaching reading to kids who could barely sit still in their chairs. It was not a glamorous job, but it filled my heart. My salary was never huge, but I learned to manage it well. I married young, to a good man named Robert, and together we had Lucas, our only son. Robert died 12 years ago from a massive heart attack. One morning he was drinking coffee with me, laughing at something silly I had said, and by the afternoon he was gone. That is how fast my previous life vanished. I was left alone with Lucas, who was 20 years old at the time and studying engineering. I swore to myself that this boy would never feel the emptiness I felt, that he would never lack for anything, that I would be enough for both of us. And I kept that promise. Maybe too well. Lucas was always a good kid, studious, responsible, affectionate. When he finished college, he landed a decent job at a tech firm. I was so proud. My son, the engineer, the man his father would have wanted him to be. For 2 years, he lived with me, saving money, planning his future. I cooked for him, did his laundry, treated him as if he were still my little boy. And he let me. I think we both got used to that dynamic. I needed to feel needed, and he needed to feel taken care of. It was comfortable. It was safe. Until he met Chloe. The first time I saw her was on a Saturday afternoon. Lucas arrived with her, holding hands, with that dopey, love-struck expression men have when they think they have found the perfect woman. "Mom, this is Chloe," he said with a huge grin. She was pretty. I cannot deny that. Long dark hair, perfect skin, a figure any woman would envy. She wore a light green dress that brought out her eyes, and when she greeted me, her voice was soft, almost shy. "Miss Evelyn, it is a pleasure to meet you. Lucas talks so much about you." She hugged me carefully, as if I were made of glass. I liked her instantly. What a fool I was. During the first few months, Chloe was charming. She came for Sunday dinner, always brought some store-bought dessert, always had kind words. "Miss Evelyn, your house is so cozy," she would say. "Miss Evelyn, you cook so well. Miss Evelyn, Lucas is so lucky to have a mother like you." I melted with every compliment. After years of loneliness, after so much time being just me and my son, having someone else at the table made me feel complete, as if we finally had a family again. I never suspected that behind that sweet smile was a cold calculator, tallying up every penny she could extract from me. It was Chloe who suggested they move in with me. One night, after dinner, while I was pouring the coffee, she took my hand delicately. "Miss Evelyn, Lucas and I are thinking of getting married soon, but the truth is, rent prices are through the roof, and we want to save up to buy our own house someday. We do not want to start out in debt." She paused, biting her lip as if it were hard to continue. "I know it is a lot to ask, but would it be possible for us to live with you for a while? Just until we save enough money. 6 months, maybe a year. Obviously, we would help with all the expenses. Lucas looked at me with pleading eyes. Mom, it would be perfect. We could save up fast, and you would not feel so alone in this big house. My heart swelled. My son, living with me again? A daughter-in-law to keep me company? A house full of life and laughter? Of course, I said without thinking twice. This is your home too. You can stay as long as you need. Chloe hugged me tight. Thank you, Miss Evelyn. You do not know how much this means to us. I promise you will not regret it. And in that moment, I believed every word. They moved in 2 weeks after the wedding. It was a small, intimate ceremony in a lovely garden. I paid for Chloe's dress, an elegant ivory design that made her look like a princess. I also paid for the reception, the flowers, the photographer. It is the least I can do for my only son, I told them when they tried to protest. Although Chloe's protest lasted exactly 3 seconds before she accepted with a radiant smile. Lucas hugged me tight that day. You are the best mom in the world, he whispered in my ear. I cried tears of joy. How blind I was. The first few months were good. Chloe cooked sometimes, cleaned their room, was polite and chatty. We divided the household chores naturally, like 3 adults living in harmony. She worked at a marketing firm, left early, and came back late. Lucas kept his usual routine. I continued teaching, although I was already thinking about retiring soon. On Sundays, we ate dinner together, watched movies, played cards. I felt part of something again. I felt useful. I felt loved. I did not realize I was being studied, analyzed, evaluated like a personal bank from which to extract everything possible. The change was so gradual, I almost did not notice it. First, Chloe stopped cooking. Oh, Evelyn. I arrived exhausted from work. Would you mind whipping something up quick? Then she stopped cleaning the common areas. It is just that I have so much stress at the office. I need to rest on the weekends. Then came the special requests. Evelyn, could you make lasagna tomorrow? I am really craving it. Oh, Evelyn, the bathroom needs a deep clean. You have time this week. I accepted everything with a smile. They were small things, no big deal. Besides, I liked feeling needed. I liked that they depended on me. It was my way of ensuring they would not leave. Then came the expenses. At the beginning, Chloe contributed some money for food, maybe $200 a month, which did not cover even half of what we actually spent. But it was something. However, after the 6th month, those contributions became irregular. Evelyn, I am a little short this month. Do you mind if I pay you double next month? The next month never arrived. Lucas did not contribute anything either. Mom, we are saving for the house. You understand, right? And I nodded, because that was the goal, right? That they buy their house and start their life. Meanwhile, I paid for everything. The electricity bill, which skyrocketed because Chloe left the air conditioning on all day. The water, because now she showered twice a day. The gas, because I was cooking for 3 instead of 1. The internet, which they upgraded to a more expensive plan because Chloe needed speed to work from home. The grocery bill, which used to cost me $300 a month and now reached $800. I watched my savings slowly decrease, but I told myself it was temporary, that soon they would leave and everything would go back to normal. Chloe started to change in other ways too. She became more demanding, more critical. She stopped calling me Miss Evelyn and just used Evelyn after the first year. This soup is very salty. Can you make it again? Oh, Evelyn, why didn't you dust the living room? I have friends coming over tomorrow. She no longer asked, she ordered. And I, like a fool, obeyed. Lucas never said anything. When I tried to talk to him about his wife's behavior, he defended her. Mom, Chloe works a lot. She is stressed. Don't be so sensitive. Every time I mentioned expenses, he deflected the conversation. Mom, we already talked about this. We are saving. Seriously, just a little more time. A little more time turned into 2 years. Then 3, then 5. Chloe started bringing friends home. Young women, heavily made up, loud, laughing uproariously in my living room while I served them coffee and cookies. I listened to them talk about their shopping, their trips, their perfect lives. Chloe showed off her new clothes, her expensive shoes, her designer handbags. Where do you get so much money? One of her friends asked once. Chloe laughed. I have my secrets. Let's just say I know how to manage my resources very well. They all laughed as if it were the wittiest joke in the world. I was in the kitchen, washing dishes, wearing the same worn-out dress I had owned for 5 years because I could not afford to buy new clothes. All my money went into maintaining that house, feeding 2 adults who earned more than I did and contributed nothing. Sundays remained sacred, or so I thought. It was the only day the 3 of us sat down together, without rushing, without distractions. I cooked all day, preparing Lucas's favorite dishes, striving to create those moments of family connection I craved so much. But Chloe always found something to criticize. This chicken is a little dry, Evelyn. The potatoes need more salt. The salad has too much vinegar. Never a thank you, never a compliment. Just criticism wrapped in a fake smile. And Lucas remained silent, eating, nodding when his wife spoke, ignoring me when I tried to join the conversation. 8 years passed. 8 years of paying for everything, of cooking for them, of cleaning up their messes, of living like a maid in my own home. My life savings were practically gone. My retirement fund, which was supposed to be my safety net, was being consumed month after month. I was 62 years old, tired, with knee pain from standing so much, with a back destroyed from carrying grocery bags. Meanwhile, Chloe looked better and better. New clothes every week. Perfect manicure. Hair always done at the most expensive salon in the city. Lucas also looked prosperous, with his fancy watch and his impeccable suits. And I, his mother, the owner of the house where they lived for free, looked older, more exhausted, more invisible every day. Until one afternoon, something changed. I was cleaning their room, something Chloe had stopped doing years ago, when I found some papers sticking out of a drawer. They were bank statements, from Chloe's account. My hands shook when I saw the numbers. She had saved over $150,000. $150,000. While I drained my account to pay for their meals, she was accumulating a fortune. I kept searching, my heart pounding. I found more documents. Receipts for monthly deposits, all labeled with the same note: own home savings. Every month, for years, she had put away almost her entire salary. Not a penny had she spent on my house. Not one. I sat on her bed, holding those trembling papers, feeling like air could not reach my lungs. $150,000. While I bought their food, paid their lights, their water, their internet, she hoarded every cent. While I stopped buying myself clothes, stopped going out with my friends, stopped allowing myself any small luxury, she accumulated a fortune behind my back. I felt dizzy, betrayed, stupid. But above all, I felt rage. A cold, deep rage that was born from some dark place inside me I had never known. I put the papers back exactly where I found them. I said nothing. That night I ate dinner with them as if nothing had happened. Chloe complained that the meat was overcooked. Lucas talked about a boring project at work. I smiled, nodded, cleared the table afterward. But inside, something had changed forever. I was no longer the naive mother who believed her sacrifice was appreciated. I was a woman who had finally opened her eyes. And when a woman like me, a woman who has been trampled on for years, finally wakes up, things can get very interesting. The following days I dedicated myself to observing, really observing, and what I saw turned my stomach. Chloe was not just selfish, she was cruel. I saw her throw perfectly good food in the trash because she did not feel like eating it anymore. I saw her leave lights on in empty rooms, the water running while she brushed her teeth, the heating on max in the middle of winter, all with absolute indifference, because she paid for nothing. I listened to her phone conversations with her friends, laughing at me. "The old lady is so naive," she said. "She thinks we are actually going to buy a house and leave. What for? I have everything free here. It is like living in a 5-star hotel where the maid works without pay." Her friends laughed. I, on the other side of the door, held back tears. But what hurt the most was Lucas, my son, the boy I raised alone after his father died, the boy for whom I sacrificed everything. One night I heard him talking to Chloe in their room. I was passing through the hallway when I heard my name. I stopped, not wanting to spy, but unable to move. "Do you think your mom suspects anything?" Chloe asked. Lucas laughed. "My mom? Please." She would do anything for me. She always has. We could live here another 10 years and she would never say anything. She loves feeling needed. Chloe responded with a silky voice. You are right, it is perfect. When we finally have enough money saved, we buy the house, we leave, and that is it. She will stay here alone. But hey, she is already old. It is not like she was going to do anything exciting with her life anyway. They laughed together. Both of them. My son and his wife, laughing at the stupid old woman who supported them. That night I did not sleep. I stayed awake in my bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling that everything I had believed about my life was a lie. My son did not love me. He used me, and I had allowed it. Even worse, I had facilitated it. I had become their perfect victim, their inexhaustible source of resources. And now, they had a plan. Stay until they squeezed out the last penny, and then disappear, leaving me alone, without savings, without dignity, without anything. Well, I thought as I looked into the darkness, two can play that game. If they could plan in secret, so could I. The next morning I called Sarah. Sarah had been my best friend since college, one of the few people still in my life after all these years. She was a lawyer, smart, direct, the kind of woman who let no one walk all over her. We met at a coffee shop far from my house. I told her everything. The years of abuse, the expenses, Chloe's secret savings, the conversation I had overheard. Sarah listened in silence, her expression hardening with every word. When I finished, she slammed her palm on the table. Evelyn, this is financial abuse, and your son is an accomplice. What are you going to do? I looked her in the eye. I am going to protect myself, and I need your help. Sarah designed the plan. It was simple, but effective. The house was in my name, completely paid off for 15 years. It was my only real asset, the only thing of value I had left. Transfer the ownership to my name, Sarah said. I will hold it in a trust for 6 months. If they try anything legal, they won't be able to touch you. The house will be protected, and when the time is right, we sell it. You keep the money, and you start over. I hesitated. It was a huge risk. But Sarah was my friend of 40 years. If I could not trust her, I could not trust anyone. Do it, I finally said. And so began my silent counterattack. The transfer took 3 weeks. 3 weeks during which I continued with my normal routine. I cooked, cleaned, smiled, pretended. Chloe and Lucas noticed nothing different. Why would they? I was predictable, reliable, manipulatable. Poor Evelyn, always available, always generous. They never imagined that behind that facade of a selfless mother, I was moving pieces on a board they did not even know existed. Sarah handled everything with absolute discretion. No document arrived at my house. All signatures were done in her office. By the time Chloe and Lucas realized what had happened, it would be too late. Meanwhile, I kept investigating. I checked every paper they left lying around, listened to every conversation I could. I discovered that Chloe earned almost $4,000 a month. Lucas earned $5,000. Together they brought $9,000 a month home and contributed absolutely nothing. I, with my pension of $1,800, paid for everything. The monthly household expenses were approximately $2,500. That meant I was left with less than $700 a month for my own needs, while they kept almost all their money. I did the math. In 10 years, they had likely saved over $300,000 combined, living completely free at my expense. I also discovered something else, something that made my blood boil. I found messages on Lucas's phone that he had left in the living room. Messages with Chloe where they discussed what they would do when I finally kicked the bucket. That is how they said it. Those exact words. They talked about selling my house, splitting the money, buying something bigger with the profits. Lucas wrote, "She has no other relatives. Everything will be ours eventually. We just have to wait." Chloe replied, "Or we could speed up the process. If we pressure her enough, maybe she gets sick faster. Stress works wonders." I read it 3 times to make sure I had understood correctly. My daughter-in-law was actively suggesting accelerating my death, and my son did not say no. He simply replied with a laughing emoji. I put the phone back where I had found it. I walked to the bathroom. I looked in the mirror. I saw a 63-year-old woman With gray hairs, she no longer had money to dye. With deep wrinkles around her eyes, with the tired skin of someone who has worked all her life. But I also saw something else. I saw fury. I saw determination. I saw a woman who was no longer going to be a victim. "You are going to regret this," I whispered to my reflection. "You are both going to regret this." And I began to plan the perfect moment for my revenge. 2 more months passed after the house transfer. 2 months in which I perfected my performance. I became the usual Evelyn, maybe even more helpful, quieter, more invisible. Chloe noticed the change and interpreted it as defeat. "You look tired, Evelyn," she told me one day with fake concern. "Maybe you are aging too fast. You should take better care of yourself." She smiled with that poisonous sweetness she had perfected. I just nodded, lowering my gaze like a defeated woman. Inside, I was smiling. I let her believe she had completely broken me. That would make her careless, overconfident, and confident people make mistakes. During those weeks, I also started documenting everything. Sarah had advised me to gather evidence just in case. I photographed Chloe's bank statements every time she left them in view. I recorded on my phone the conversations where she and Lucas talked about their plans. I kept receipts for all the purchases I made for the house, showing that I paid for absolutely everything. I made a detailed list of every monthly expense, every bill, every penny I had invested in maintaining those 2 leeches. Sarah reviewed everything and nodded with approval. "This is pure gold, Evelyn. If they ever try to sue you or claim anything, we will sink them with this." I felt powerful for the first time in years. Chloe began to be more openly cruel. She no longer feigned respect or gratitude. She treated me like an incompetent employee. "Evelyn, the house is a mess. What have you been doing all day?" She yelled at me one afternoon when she arrived from work. I had spent the whole morning cleaning, but she had arrived and thrown her coat on the sofa, left her shoes in the middle of the living room, spilled coffee in the kitchen. "I am sorry," I murmured, picking up her things. She snorted. "You should be. Lucas and I work hard. The least you can do is keep the house decent." Lucas, sitting in the armchair with his laptop, did not even look up. His silence was support. His indifference, complicity. One night I heard Chloe talking on the phone with someone. She was in her room, but her voice was loud enough for me to hear from the hallway. "Yes, Mom, we almost have enough money. Another year, maybe less, and we buy the house of our dreams." "The old lady? Do not worry about her. When we leave, we will never see her again. I already talked to Lucas. We will cut all contact. We will change our numbers. We will block her social media. Everything. She will stay alone in that old house, with her memories and her bitterness. Honestly, I do not know how she lasted so long being so pathetic." She laughed, that high-pitched, unpleasant sound I had come to detest. My hand gripped the edge of the wall. I breathed deep. Soon, I told myself. Very soon. I decided the perfect moment would be Sunday. Sunday was sacred for them. The day I prepared the special dinner. The day we sat together like a family. It would be poetic that on that day, in that scenario of fake normality, I finally showed my cards. I talked to Sarah, and we scheduled everything. She would have the documents ready, the evidence organized, everything prepared for the showdown. "Are you sure you want to do it like this?" she asked me. "You could just leave them a letter and be done with it. Leave without giving them the satisfaction of a confrontation." I looked at her steadily. "No, Sarah. I need to see their faces. I need them to know I am not the idiot they thought I was. I need my moment." She smiled. "Then you shall have it." The Saturday before the big day, Chloe did something that almost made me lose control prematurely. She came home with shopping bags, new clothes, expensive shoes, designer handbags, all bought with the money she had saved while I paid for her food. She paraded around the living room modeling every garment. "What do you think of this coral dress, Evelyn?" she asked, twirling. It was beautiful. Probably cost over $500. "It is very pretty," I said with a neutral voice. She laughed. "I know. I am going to wear it to the housewarming of our new place. It is going to be spectacular. Too bad you won't be invited." She said it as if it were a joke, but her eyes told the truth. Lucas, from the sofa, laughed too. "Mom isn't into parties anyway. Right, Mom?" They looked at me expecting me to shrink, to feel small. Instead, I smiled. "You are right, son. I am not into parties. and I went to my room, leaving them confused by my lack of reaction. That night, alone in my room, I took out all the documents I had been saving. Chloe's bank statements, the messages I had photographed from Lucas's phone, the receipts of my payments, the recordings of their cruel conversations, the deed to the house now in Sarah's name, the letter from my lawyer notifying that the property would be sold. Everything was there, organized, perfect. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow, everything changes. I went to bed early, but I could not sleep. Anticipation kept me awake. It was not nervousness. It was excitement. For the first time in 10 years, I had control. Sunday arrived with a gray sky, appropriate for what was to come. I got up early and started cooking. I prepared everything Lucas liked: roast chicken with potatoes, fresh salad, homemade bread, and of course, my caramel cheesecake. I wanted everything to be perfect, for that last Sunday to be etched in their memories. Chloe came down at noon, yawning, in pajamas. "Smells good," she said without much enthusiasm. "What time do we eat?" "At 3, as always," I replied. She poured coffee and sat down to check her phone, ignoring me completely. Lucas appeared an hour later, also in comfortable clothes, also glued to his cell phone. Neither of them offered to help. Neither asked if I needed anything. They were like two guests in a hotel waiting to be served. At 3 o'clock sharp, the table was ready. Plates perfectly placed, glasses full, silverware shining. I had outdone myself. Chloe and Lucas sat down without saying thank you. They started serving themselves without waiting for me to sit. It was their routine. I sat in my spot, at the head of the table, and watched them eat. Chloe criticized that the chicken was a little dry. Lucas said the salad needed more lemon. I just nodded, without defending myself. We ate in uncomfortable silence, interrupted only by their occasional comments about their jobs, their plans for the week, their lives in which I did not matter. When they finished the main course, I got up to get dessert. I brought the cheesecake, perfect, golden, with its shiny caramel glaze. I placed it in the center of the table. While I served her, Chloe wiped her mouth with the napkin and cleared her throat. There was something in her posture, something theatrical, that put me on alert. Lucas looked at her and smiled. Something was about to happen. And then, she spoke. "Evelyn, Lucas and I have something to announce to you." Her voice was cheerful, almost sing-song. My heart began to beat faster. This was the moment I had been waiting for. "Go ahead," I said calmly, sitting down again. Chloe leaned forward, her eyes shining with that malicious glint I now knew so well. And then she released the words they had been rehearsing, the words they thought would destroy me. "Evelyn, thank you for the 10 years of living rent-free in your house. While you paid the electric, the water, the food, the internet, absolutely everything, I saved every penny of my salary. I bought my own house, a beautiful, modern one, just for Lucas and me. And now we are leaving. We are leaving you here, all alone, in this old house, and we will never speak to you again. We are cutting all contact. Forever." She paused dramatically, savoring my supposed agony. "We move next month. Goodbye, Evelyn." The silence that followed her words was dense, heavy. Chloe looked at me with a triumphant smile, expecting to see me cry, beg, collapse. Lucas had his arms crossed, chin raised, proud of his wife, proud of having used me for a full decade. They expected my collapse. They expected tears, despair, pleas for them not to abandon me. But I just stayed there, sitting, with my hands on the table, staring at them. And then I did something they did not expect. I smiled. Not a sad or defeated smile. A genuine, almost amused smile. "Is that all?" I asked with a quiet voice. Chloe blinked, her expression of triumph wavering for a second. "Excuse me?" I said, "Is that all? Did you finish your speech?" My tone was almost casual, as if we were talking about the weather. Chloe straightened in her chair, her smile returning but now with a touch of confusion. "Evelyn, I do not know if you understood what I just said. We are leaving. You are staying alone. Forever. Without family. Without anyone." She emphasized every word as if I were slow to understand. I nodded slowly. "Oh, I understood you perfectly. You lived here 10 years for free. You saved all your money while I paid for absolutely everything. You bought a house. You are leaving. You will cut contact. Yes, I heard you. It is a brilliant plan, Chloe. Really brilliant. My sarcasm was evident, but they were too confused to process it. Lucas leaned forward. Mom, are you okay? I thought you would be. I don't know. More upset. I laughed. It was a short, dry laugh. Upset? Why would I be upset, Lucas? After all, you have been so considerate, so generous with me all these years. The sarcasm dripped from every word. Chloe frowned. Something was not going as she had planned. I was not reacting like the docile victim she expected. Evelyn, maybe you are not comprehending the magnitude of what is happening. We are leaving you, alone, with nothing. Her voice now had a touch of irritation. I was ruining her moment of glory. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms, maintaining that mysterious smile. Chloe, Lucas, I have to tell you something, a very interesting coincidence. My voice was calm, controlled. It turns out I have news too. Chloe exchanged a look with Lucas. News? She asked with suspicion. Yes, news. And I think you are going to love it. I got up from the table slowly, walked to the sideboard where I had left a thick manila envelope. I had placed it there that morning, waiting for this precise moment. I took it and returned to the table, placing it in front of me. Chloe looked at the envelope as if it were a poisonous snake. What is that? Lucas asked with a tense voice. This, I said, patting the envelope, is the result of 6 months of very careful planning. You see, a few months ago, I also had a revelation. I discovered very interesting things. I opened the envelope slowly, enjoying every second of their growing discomfort. I took out the first document and slid it across the table toward Chloe. Do you recognize this? It was a copy of her bank statement, the one showing the $150,000 saved. Chloe went pale. How? How did you get that? Her voice was barely a whisper. Oh, you left it in your room, along with many other interesting things. I took out more papers. Here are receipts for all your luxury purchases. Clothes, shoes, purses, trips, all paid with the money you saved while living for free in my house. Lucas tried to intervene. Mom, you are invading our privacy. You cannot just go through our things. I looked at him with an icy calm. Privacy? In my house? The house I paid for, that I maintained, where you lived without contributing a single cent for 10 years? Do not talk to me about privacy, Lucas. I took out another document. But wait, there is more. This is particularly interesting. It was a printed transcript of the messages between Lucas and Chloe, where they talked about waiting for me to kick the bucket to sell my house. The messages where Chloe suggested that stress could accelerate my death. I placed it in front of Lucas. Do you want to explain this? His face lost all color. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Chloe tried to regain control. That was taken out of context. It was just a stupid joke. A joke? My voice rose for the first time. Conspiring about my death is a joke? I got up from the chair, leaning my hands on the table, leaning toward them. Let me tell you what is not a joke. 6 months ago, after discovering your little plan, I did something very smart. I transferred the ownership of this house to the name of my lawyer, Sarah. The shock on their faces was instant and absolute. What? Chloe stood up abruptly, her chair falling backward with a loud noise. That is impossible. This house is yours. It was mine. I corrected with satisfaction. Now it is in a trust under Sarah's name, and she, following my instructions, is going to sell it. Lucas finally found his voice, although it sounded strangled. You cannot do that. I am your son. I inherit this house. I laughed, a bitter and long laugh. Inherit? Oh, Lucas, sweet and naive Lucas, you do not inherit anything anymore. I took out another document from the envelope. This is my updated will, signed 4 months ago. I have removed you completely as a beneficiary. Every penny I have, every asset, every possession goes to charitable foundations. You receive nothing. I saw the exact moment reality hit him. His eyes widened, his mouth opened. No, Mom, you can't. Yes, I can. And I did. I turned to Chloe. And as for you, dear daughter-in-law, I have something special. I pulled out a detailed report. This is a complete record of every dollar I spent maintaining this house during the last 10 years. Electricity, water, gas, food, Internet, repairs, taxes. It all adds up to approximately $250,000. Chloe recoiled as if I had slapped her. So what? We do not owe you anything. You offered for us to live here. True. I nodded. I offered for you to live here temporarily while you saved for your own house, with the implied agreement that you would contribute to expenses, something you never did. And now I discover that not only did you not contribute, but you consciously exploited me, planning to abandon me without remorse. I pulled the last document from the envelope. This is a legal notice. The house will be sold in 30 days. You have that time to find somewhere to live and leave. If you do not do it voluntarily, Sarah will start an eviction process. Chloe stumbled, grabbing the back of the chair. Her face had gone from pale to a sickly greenish tone. This cannot be happening. Lucas stood up abruptly, his face contorted in fury. You are a bitter old woman. All we did was accept your help. You offered for us to live here. Yes, my voice was cold steel. I offered help. I did not offer to become your financial slave. I did not offer to endure years of humiliation, exploitation, and cruelty. And I definitely did not offer you the opportunity to mock me while you planned to abandon me and cut me out of your lives forever. Chloe began to hyperventilate. No. This was not in the plan. We. You what? I interrupted her. Thought I was too stupid to notice? Too weak to defend myself? I underestimated you for years, but you underestimated me. I walked toward the window, turning my back on them. The house is being sold. You are leaving, and I am starting over. With the money from the sale, I will buy a small apartment for myself. Something manageable, without parasites. Chloe suddenly lunged toward me, grabbing my arm. Evelyn, please, we can fix this. I will pay everything we owe you. The $250,000. I promise. I looked at her with contempt. With what money, Chloe? Oh, right, with the $150,000 you saved living free here. But wait, that does not even cover everything you owe me. And besides, you already bought your new house, remember? Surely you used those savings as a down payment. Her silence confirmed it. We can sell the new house, she stuttered. We can get the money back and… I am not interested in your money, I said firmly, pulling my arm from her grip. This is no longer about money. It is about dignity, about respect, about justice. Lucas approached, his eyes pleading. Mom, I am your son, your only son. Dad would have wanted us to support each other. Those words were the drop that spilled the glass. I turned to him with a fury I had been containing for years. Do not dare mention your father. He would be ashamed of what you have become. A man who allows his wife to abuse his mother. A man who plans to abandon the woman who sacrificed everything for him. Your father was honorable, hardworking, generous. You are his opposite. Lucas recoiled as if I had hit him physically. Chloe started to cry, dramatic and loud sobs. This is so unfair. You are going to leave us on the street. No, I corrected. You two have well-paid jobs. You have savings. You have your precious new house that you bought with the money you got by exploiting me. You are not going to be on the street. You are going to be exactly where you planned to be. Only I am not going to stay here alone, miserable, waiting for you to forget me. I am moving on too. Chloe dropped into her chair, still crying, although now her sobs sounded more like rage than sadness. Lucas paced back and forth in the living room, running his hands through his hair, muttering incoherent things. I remained standing, firm, watching them fall apart. This was exactly what I had imagined during all those months of planning. Seeing them lose control, seeing them realize that their perfect victim had turned out to be much smarter than they had ever anticipated. I have not finished yet, I said with a calm voice. Both looked up, their faces showing a mix of fear and despair. There are a few more things you need to know. I went back to the table and took out an additional folder I had kept hidden. During these last few months, I not only transferred the house and updated my will, I also did some other interesting research. I opened the folder and took out several documents with official seals. For example, I discovered that during the last 3 years, Lucas, you gave me money supposedly to help with the household expenses. Remember? Every month you gave me $200 and said it was your contribution. Lucas nodded nervously, not understanding where I was going. Well, it turns out Chloe took that money from my purse as soon as I put it away. I found it recorded in her bank deposits. Small amounts. $200 monthly, for 3 years. That adds up to over $7,000. Chloe stood up abruptly. That is a lie. Is it a lie? I pulled out the bank statements with the dates highlighted. Every deposit matches exactly the day after Lucas gave me the money. Do you want to explain that coincidence? The silence was deafening. Lucas looked at Chloe with an expression of total confusion. Chloe, is that true? She stuttered, looking for an excuse, but found none credible. I needed that money to save faster. Stealing from my mother? Lucas's voice rose in pitch for the first time. I thought I was helping with the house expenses and you were stealing it? I saw the crack forming between them and decided to widen it a little more. There is something else you should know, Lucas. That house you bought, the one you bragged so much about a few minutes ago, whose name is it in? Chloe paled again. Lucas looked at her. It is in both our names, obviously. We are married. Are you sure? I asked with fake innocence. Maybe you should check the property documents. Lucas turned to Chloe. What is she talking about? Chloe tried to laugh, but it sounded forced and nervous. Don't listen to her. She is trying to separate us. It is obvious the house is in both names. Then you won't mind if Lucas verifies the documents right now, I said, crossing my arms. In fact, why don't you bring them? They must be in your room, with the rest of your important papers. Chloe froze. I don't know where they are exactly right now. Lucas was already walking toward the stairs. I do know where you keep the important documents. I am going to look for them. Lucas, wait! Chloe ran after him, but he was already taking the steps 2 at a time. I heard them arguing upstairs, drawers opening, papers moving. I stayed in the dining room, waiting patiently. I knew exactly what he was going to find because I had seen those documents myself weeks ago. 5 minutes later, Lucas came down the stairs with a folder in his hand and an expression of absolute betrayal on his face. Chloe came behind him, trying to explain, her words tripping over each other. Lucas, let me explain. There is a reason. A reason? He yelled, and it was the first time in 10 years I heard him raise his voice that way. The house is only in your name, only yours. He threw the documents on the dining table. Indeed, the property deed showed only Chloe's name as the owner. I thought it would be easier for the paperwork, stammered Chloe. We were going to add your name later. After what? Lucas was furious now, his face red, the veins in his neck bulging. We spent all our money on that house, and it is not even in my name. What happens if we get divorced? I have nothing. Chloe tried to touch him, but he pulled away. We are not going to get divorced, honey. Trust me. I decided to add more fuel to the fire. Lucas, did you know Chloe has been looking for divorce lawyers? Both turned to me. What? Lucas looked like he was on the verge of a breakdown. I took out another document from my magic folder. 2 months ago, Chloe consulted with 3 different law firms specializing in divorces. I have the emails. Chloe shook her head violently. That is false. You are inventing things. Am I inventing? I extended the printed papers to Lucas. Read the dates. Read the contents of the consultations. She asked specifically about how to keep assets acquired during the marriage in case of separation. Lucas read the documents with trembling hands. His expression went from fury to something much worse, absolute devastation. Chloe, you were going to leave me. His voice sounded broken. All this time, you were planning to leave me once we had enough money. Chloe opened her mouth to deny, but the evidence was irrefutable. I was just exploring options. Just in case. It means nothing. Just in case what? Lucas dropped the papers. Just in case you decided you didn't need me anymore? Just in case you found someone better? Just in case you decided you wanted the house just for yourself? Tears began to roll down his cheeks. My son, the man who had been so proud of his manipulative wife, finally saw the truth, and it hurt. I almost felt pity for him. Almost. Lucas, said Chloe with a pleading voice, you are the one who doesn't understand. I did all this for us, for our future. Our future, he laughed bitterly. There is no our in anything you did. The house is in your name. You consulted divorce lawyers. You stole the money I gave my mother. What part of that was for us? Chloe turned to me with pure hate in her eyes. This is your fault. You put these ideas in his head. You are manipulating him. I laughed, a genuine and liberating laugh. I am manipulating him? Chloe, the only thing I did was show him the truth. You manipulated yourself with your own greed and deceit. Lucas sat heavily on the sofa, his head in his hands. I cannot believe I have been so blind. For years, Mom, for years I treated you as if you didn't matter. I let Chloe mistreat you. I supported every horrible decision she took. And all this time, she was planning to betray me too. His voice broke. I am an idiot. I would not contradict him. He was an idiot, but he was also my son, and a very small part of me felt compassion for him. A very, very small part. Chloe tried one last desperate move. She fell to her knees in front of me, clasping her hands in supplication. Evelyn, please. I know I made mistakes. I know I was cruel. But we can fix it. You can keep the house. We will leave. Just do not destroy us like this. I looked at her from above. This woman who had made my life miserable for a decade, who had conspired to abandon me, who had possibly wished for my death. Chloe, I am not destroying you. I am freeing you. Now you can go to your precious new house, the one you bought with the money you saved exploiting me. You can live there alone or with Lucas, if he still wants you after all this. But it will not be on my property. Not with my blessing. Not with my silence. I stepped away from her. You have 30 days. I suggest you use them wisely. Lucas looked up, his eyes red and swollen. Mom, I am sorry. I know it means nothing now, but I am so sorry. I looked at him for a long moment. This was the boy I had carried in my arms. The boy I had taught to read, to ride a bike, to be a good man. Somewhere along the way I had failed. Or maybe he had chosen to fail. I was not sure which was worse. Lucas, your apology changes nothing. Actions have consequences. For 10 years you treated me like a personal bank, like a maid, like something less than human. And you did it consciously. You cannot undo that with, I am sorry. Period. He nodded slowly, accepting the truth of my words. Will you ever forgive me? I considered his question carefully. Maybe. Someday. But that day is not today. And forgiveness does not mean things go back to how they were before. That will never happen again. Chloe finally got up from the floor, her mask of vulnerability falling to reveal the cold and calculating face she had been hiding all this time. You know what, Evelyn? I am glad this happened. I am glad you finally show your true nature. We always knew you were a bitter and resentful old woman. Now everyone will see it. I smiled at her last pathetic attempt to hurt me. Chloe, you can tell whoever you want whatever you want. I have complete documentation of every penny I spent, every abuse I suffered, every lie you told. If you try to defame me, I will sink you with evidence. And believe me, after all these years of enduring your cruelty, I will have no problem making it public. Her bravado vanished instantly. She knew I was serious. Now, I said, addressing both, I suggest you start packing. The clock is ticking. The following days were strangely quiet in the house. Chloe and Lucas moved like ghosts, avoiding me, avoiding each other. Meals were no longer together. I ate alone in the kitchen, while they hid in their room or went out to eat. The atmosphere was so tense you could cut it with a knife. But I was at peace. For the first time in years, I felt like I was breathing clean air. I no longer had to pretend. I no longer had to submit. I no longer had to be invisible in my own home. I walked through the halls with my head held high, knowing that every day that passed was one less day with them under my roof. Sarah came to visit me a week after the confrontation. We sat in the backyard with coffee, far from prying ears. How are things going? She asked, studying my face. They are packing. Slowly, with resentment, but they are doing it, I replied, taking a sip of my coffee. Chloe barely speaks to me. Lucas tries to start conversations sometimes. I think he is looking for some way to fix things, but I have nothing to say to him. Sarah nodded with approval. Good. Keep your distance. The house already has 2 purchase offers, both good. You could get almost $300,000 from the sale. I smiled. $300,000. After paying commissions and legal expenses, I would have enough left to buy a comfortable condo and have a financial cushion for my golden years. Finally, I could live without the constant pressure of supporting two parasitic adults. One night, approximately 2 weeks after the big confrontation, I heard raised voices coming from Chloe and Lucas's room. It was not my intention to listen, but the walls of the house were thin and they did not bother to lower the volume. "I cannot believe you were so stupid," shouted Lucas. "You put the house only in your name. You consulted divorce lawyers. What were you thinking?" Chloe's voice was defensive and shrill. "I was thinking about protecting myself." "You are a weak man, Lucas. You always let your mother control you." "I needed to ensure I had something that was mine alone." "Weak?" Lucas's voice sounded hurt. "I followed you in everything. I supported every horrible decision you made. I let us mistreat my mother for years. And this is how you repay me? Planning to leave me with nothing. Oh, please, do not play the victim now. You knew exactly what we were doing. Do not pretend you are innocent." She was right about that. Lucas was not innocent. He had been an active participant in my exploitation, not just a passive spectator. But it was interesting to see how their relationship crumbled under the weight of their own lies and betrayals. Chloe had built her perfect plan: exploit the dumb mother-in-law, save all the money, buy a house only in her name, and eventually get rid of both me and Lucas. It was brilliant in its cruelty. But like all plans built on deceit, it collapsed the moment the truth came to light. "I do not want to keep talking about this," said Chloe with a tired voice. "We need to focus on moving. We have less than 2 weeks." "Moving to a house that is only yours," responded Lucas bitterly. "Yes, unless you prefer sleeping on the street." The silence that followed was heavy and final. The next day, Lucas knocked on my bedroom door. It was early in the morning, barely dawn. "Mom, can I talk to you?" His voice was soft, almost childlike. It reminded me of the boy who used to wake me up on Saturdays asking me to make pancakes. I opened the door, but I did not invite him in. "What do you need, Lucas?" He looked terrible. Deep dark circles, unshaven beard, wrinkled clothes. I just wanted to tell you that Chloe and I are probably going to separate." I showed no emotion. "That is between you two. I know you do not care, and I do not blame you," he continued, looking at the floor. "But I need you to know that I realize now everything we did, how cruel we were. And you were right. Dad would be ashamed of me." His eyes filled with tears. "I am ashamed of myself." Part of me wanted to console him, hug him, tell him everything would be okay, as I had done 1,000 times when he was a child. But that part was small and buried under layers of pain and betrayal. "Lucas, I appreciate you recognizing your mistakes. That is a step. But I cannot give you the forgiveness you seek. Not yet. Maybe never." He nodded, tears falling freely now. "I understand. Just wanted you to know I am sorry. I really am sorry." He turned to leave, but I stopped him. "Lucas," he turned, with hope in his eyes. "Learn from this. Be better. Not for me, but for yourself. Because if you continue on this path, you will end up alone and miserable, with no one who truly loves you." He swallowed hard and nodded before walking away down the hall. I closed the door and leaned against it, feeling the weight of 32 years of motherhood on my shoulders. Chloe, on the other hand, never tried to apologize or reconcile. She maintained her cold and hostile attitude until the end. I watched her pack her things with brusque and aggressive movements, muttering insults that I could hear perfectly but chose to ignore. One afternoon I found her in the kitchen, making herself tea. I decided to attempt one last conversation, not for her, but for my own peace of mind. "Chloe, did you ever care about me even a little bit?" She turned to me, surprised by the question. For a moment, I saw something in her eyes, maybe a flash of humanity, but it vanished quickly. "Honestly, Evelyn? No. You never mattered to me. You were a means to an end, a way to live for free while I saved money. Nothing more." Her brutal honesty was almost refreshing. "At least you are honest now," I said quietly. "That is more than I expected." She slammed her cup on the counter. "You know what is the most pathetic thing about all this? That you allowed it. For 10 years you let yourself be trampled on. You let us use you, humiliate you. treat you like trash. And you never said anything. So yes, I used you, but you let me do it." Her words were designed to hurt me, to make me feel guilty, but they no longer had power over me. "You are right," I said calmly. "I allowed it because I loved my son and wanted to believe you were good people. That was my mistake. But the difference between you and me, Chloe, is that I learned from my mistake. I changed. I stood up for myself. You are still the same cruel and selfish person you always were, and that is something you will have to live with for the rest of your life." She looked at me with pure hate before leaving the kitchen, leaving her tea untouched. The last days before their departure were mechanical. Boxes piled in the hallway, furniture wrapped in plastic, the house slowly emptying of their presence. Sarah had coordinated with the moving company to make sure everything went smoothly. I did not want drama at the last minute. The morning of their move arrived with a clear and bright sky. Ironic, considering the darkness of the situation. The moving truck arrived at 8 o'clock sharp. Burly men began loading boxes and furniture. Chloe supervised everything with a hard expression, giving orders like a general on a battlefield. Lucas helped in silence, avoiding my gaze every time our paths crossed in the house. By noon, almost everything was loaded. The house looked strangely empty without their belongings. I could see the marks on the walls where pictures had hung, the empty spaces where furniture used to be. It was as if their presence was being systematically erased, and the feeling was tremendously liberating. Chloe was the first to leave. She stood at the front door, looking at me one last time. "I hope you are happy," she said with venom in her voice. "You destroyed a marriage and left your son with nothing." "No," I corrected firmly. "You destroyed your own marriage with lies and betrayals. I only exposed the truth. What you did with that truth was your choice." She snorted and walked out the door without saying goodbye. I watched her get into her new car, another luxury bought with money saved at my expense, and drive away. I felt no sadness, just relief. Lucas stayed until the end, making sure everything was loaded correctly. When the last piece of furniture was put on the truck, he approached me. We stood in the empty living room, our voices echoing against the bare walls. "Mom," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "I know I have no right to ask anything, but is there any possibility that someday we can have a relationship again? Not like before, but something?" I looked at him, this man who was my son, but also a stranger. "Lucas, I do not know what the future holds for us. Right now, I need time. I need to heal. I need to rebuild my life without the shadow of what you did to me. If someday you are ready to be a true son, one who respects and values me, maybe we can talk. But I cannot promise you anything." He nodded sadly. "It is more than I deserve." He leaned in as if to hug me, but stopped. "Take care, Mom. You too, Lucas." And with that, he left. The door closed behind Lucas with a soft but definitive sound. I stood in the center of the empty living room, surrounded by silence. A silence that was not oppressive or lonely, but liberating. For the first time in 10 years, the house was completely mine again. No voices criticizing my food, no heavy footsteps on the stairs at midnight, no tension floating in the air like a toxic cloud. Just peace. I walked slowly through each room, touching the walls, looking out the windows, saying a silent goodbye to this place that had been my home for so many years. Soon this too would change, but for now, I enjoyed this moment of transition. That night I slept better than I had slept in years. There were no nightmares, no anxious awakenings wondering what new humiliation awaited me the next day. Just deep, restorative sleep. When I woke up the next morning, the sun was coming through my window in a way that seemed different, brighter, warmer. I got up without rushing, made coffee just for myself, sat at the kitchen table that had previously been the scene of so many tense dinners, and simply existed. I existed without demands, without criticism, without having to be invisible. It was glorious. I called Sarah to update the sale process. "The offers are still firm," she informed me. "We can close the sale in 2 weeks if you are ready." I was ready. More than ready. The following days I dedicated to looking for my new home. Sarah accompanied me to see several condos. Some were too big, others too expensive, others in areas that did not convince me. But finally we found the perfect one. It was a 2-bedroom condo in a modern building, with lots of natural light, a small but functional kitchen, and a balcony overlooking a park. Most importantly, it was completely mine. No one else would live there. No one else would contaminate it with their negative presence. It was my sanctuary. I signed the purchase contract that same afternoon, feeling an emotion I had not experienced in years. This was a fresh start, a second chance to live life on my own terms. While I waited for the transactions to be completed, I started getting rid of things. Old furniture that carried too many bitter memories, decorations that Chloe had constantly criticized, saying they were too plain, objects that simply no longer had a place in my new life. I donated a lot to charity organizations, sold some things, threw others away. It was cathartic, as if I were cleaning not only my physical space, but also my emotional space. Every trash bag I took out, every piece of furniture they took away, was a weight off my soul. I was literally leaving the past behind, piece by piece. One afternoon, while organizing old papers, I found photos of when Lucas was a child. Photos of his first day of school, birthdays, family vacations when Robert was still alive. My heart clenched seeing them. This was the boy I had loved unconditionally, the boy who had been my whole world. At what point had he become the man who had betrayed me so deeply? I sat on the floor, surrounded by these photographic memories, and for the first time since the confrontation, I cried. I did not cry for what I had lost, but for what I had never really had. I had believed we had a special relationship, mother and son, but now I understood it had been mostly one-sided. I gave, and he took and took, without really valuing the sacrifice. It was a painful truth, but necessary to accept. I kept some photos, the ones from when Lucas was little, when he was still innocent. The rest I left in a box I planned to give him eventually, if we ever spoke again. They were his memories too, even if they were stained by what he had done later. While I was putting the box away, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated before answering, but something made me press the button. Hello? Evelyn? It was a male voice I did not recognize immediately. Yes, who is this? This is Arthur from the library book club. We met a few months ago. I remembered vaguely. I had attended a couple of club meetings before the situation at home became so unbearable that I stopped going. Arthur was an older man, a widower, always kind, and with interesting opinions about the books we discussed. Ah, yes, Arthur. How are you? I asked, curious about why he was calling me. I am fine, thank you. Look, I noticed you stopped coming to the meetings, and I got your number through the librarian. I hope you do not mind me calling. His voice sounded genuinely concerned. We wanted to know if you were okay and if you planned to return to the club. Your perspective on the books was always very refreshing. I was pleasantly surprised that someone had noticed my absence. It is very kind of you to ask. Arthur, I have been going through some major changes in my life, but the truth is I would love to return to the club. Excellent, he replied enthusiastically. Our next meeting is next Thursday. We will be discussing 100 years of solitude. Would you like to come? I smiled. It had been so long since I smiled about something genuinely positive. I would love to. I will be there. After hanging up, I realized I had been so consumed by the situation with Chloe and Lucas that I had abandoned all the things that made me happy. The book club, walks in the park, afternoon coffee with the few friends I still had. I had let them steal not only my money and my peace, but also my social life, my hobbies, my identity outside of being their victim. But that ended now. With my new life in a new apartment, I would recover everything I had lost and more. Thursday arrived quickly. I dressed with care, choosing a simple lavender dress that made me feel good. I arrived at the library with the book under my arm and butterflies in my stomach. It was ridiculous to be nervous about a book club, but I had spent so much time isolated that any social interaction felt significant. The group welcomed me warmly. Arthur was there, grinning broadly when he saw me enter. Evelyn, what a joy that you came. He introduced me to some new members who had joined since my absence. We spent the next 2 hours discussing Garcia Marquez's masterpiece, laughing, debating, sharing interpretations. I felt alive in a way I had forgotten was possible. Arthur had fascinating opinions about magical realism, and we found ourselves talking even after the official meeting ended. Would you like to grab a coffee? He asked me while we were putting away the chairs. There is a lovely cafe 2 blocks from here. I hesitated just a second before accepting. I would love to. The cafe was cozy, with exposed brick walls and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee floating in the air. We sat by a window and ordered our drinks. Arthur told me about his life. He had been an engineer, retired for 5 years. His wife had passed away from cancer 3 years ago. He had 2 adult daughters who lived in other states and visited him regularly. He liked to read, walk, and had started taking dance classes recently. "And you?" he asked, with genuine interest. "What have you been doing these months?" I told him, in general terms, about my situation. I did not go into all the sordid details, but I explained that I had been living with my son and his wife, that the situation had become untenable, and that I was now in the process of starting a new life in a new apartment. He listened without judging, nodding at the appropriate moments. "Sounds like you made a very brave decision," he said when I finished. "It is not easy to make big changes at our age, but sometimes it is necessary for our happiness." His words were simple but comforting. "You know what?" he continued. "I am organizing a small group of people to go salsa dancing this Saturday. It is at a club that offers free lessons before the social dancing starts. Would you like to come? You do not have to dance if you do not want to, but it is fun and the energy is wonderful." Dancing. I had not danced since before Robert died, but the idea excited me instead of scaring me. "You know what, Arthur? I would love to go." His smile widened. "Perfect. I will pick you up at 7. We exchanged phone numbers and said goodbye with a cordial hug. As I walked back to my almost empty house, I felt lighter than I had felt in years. Saturday arrived, and with it, the nerves. I tried on 3 different dresses before deciding on a peach-colored one I had bought years ago but never worn. I fixed my hair, put on a little makeup, and when Arthur rang the doorbell at 7 o'clock sharp, I felt ready for this new adventure. The dance club was full of people of all ages, but mostly older folks like us. The salsa class was fun and challenging. Arthur was a surprisingly good and patient dancer, guiding me through the basic steps with constant encouragement. "You are doing great," he told me every time I stepped on his feet, which was with embarrassing frequency. But I did not care. I was laughing, moving, feeling the music, living. When the class ended and the social dancing began, Arthur took me out to the floor several times. We were not perfect. We stumbled and laughed at our mistakes, but it was perfect in its imperfection. During the following weeks, my life transformed in ways I had never imagined. The sale of the house was completed without problems. Sarah handled everything with her characteristic efficiency, ensuring every paper was in order, every signature in its place. The day I received the check with the money from the sale, nearly $300,000 after all expenses, I stared at it for several minutes. This money represented more than just a financial transaction. It represented my freedom, my independence, my future. I was no longer tied to a painful past. I could start over, on my own terms, owing nothing to anyone. The move to my new condo was surprisingly simple. Since I had sold or donated most of my old belongings, I only needed a small truck to transport the essentials. Arthur offered to help, and together with Sarah and some friends from the book club, we turned what could have been a stressful day into a joyful experience. We carried boxes, assembled furniture, hung pictures. Sarah brought pizza for everyone, and we ended up sitting in my new living room, eating and laughing as if we were old friends celebrating something special. And I guess that was exactly what we were doing. We were celebrating my rebirth. I decorated the apartment exactly how I wanted. Light and bright colors that Chloe had always criticized as being too simple. Plants in every corner because they made me happy, regardless of someone saying it was unnecessary work. Photos on the walls of happy moments, of trips I wanted to take, of dreams I could still fulfill. Every corner of that space reflected who I really was, not who someone else had wanted me to be. The balcony became my favorite place. I sat there every morning with my coffee, looking at the park, watching life go on, feeling grateful to be part of it again. Arthur became a constant presence in my new life. Not in an invasive or rushed way, but natural and comfortable. We went to the book club together every week. We danced salsa on Saturdays. We walked in the park on Sundays. Sometimes we simply sat on my balcony or his porch, drinking coffee, talking about books, about life, about our pasts and our futures. It was easy to be with him. There were no games, no manipulation, no impossible expectations. Just two older people enjoying each other's company, building something genuine and honest. After so many years of toxic relationships, this simplicity was revolutionary. One day, 3 months after moving, Arthur and I were making dinner together in my kitchen. He was chopping vegetables while I seasoned the chicken. We worked in sync, talking about trivia, laughing at silly jokes. At one moment, he stopped and looked at me with a serious expression. "Evelyn, there is something I want to tell you." My heart gave a little jump. These last few months have been the happiest I have had since I lost my wife. You have given me back something I thought I had lost forever. The ability to feel joy, to look forward to tomorrow. I do not know what we are exactly, and I do not need labels. I just need you to know that you are important to me. His words moved me deeply. Arthur, you are important to me too. You helped me remember that life does not end when you are betrayed, that there is still goodness in the world, still reasons to smile. We hugged in that kitchen, two survivors of difficult lives, finding comfort and hope in each other. 4 months after Chloe and Lucas moved out, I received a call. It was Lucas. My first instinct was not to answer, but something made me press the green button. "Hi, Mom." His voice sounded tired, defeated. "Hi, Lucas." I kept my tone neutral. "I know you probably do not want to talk to me, but I needed to tell you something. Chloe and I officially divorced last week." I was not surprised. "I am sorry for you," I said, and it was partially true. "How are you?" "I am surviving. I had to sell my share of the house she bought to pay off debts. Turns out Chloe had taken out several loans in my name without me knowing. I am living in a small apartment, basically starting from zero." There was a long pause. "Mom, you were right about everything. About her, about me, about what we did. I was a blind idiot." "Lucas," I said carefully, "I appreciate you recognizing it, but you need to understand that admitting your mistakes is just the first step. What matters is what you do now with that awareness." "I know," his voice cracked slightly. "I am in therapy, trying to understand how I became someone capable of treating his own mother that way. I do not expect your forgiveness, but I want you to know I am working on being better." For the first time since the confrontation, I felt something resembling hope regarding my son. It was not much, barely a tiny sprout, but it was there. "I am glad to hear that, Lucas. Truly. Do you think someday we could, I don't know, get coffee or something?" he asked timidly. I thought about it carefully. "Maybe. When you are ready to be the son I always needed, not the one you were. When you can look at me as a person who deserves respect, not as a resource to exploit, then yes, we could get coffee." "I understand. Thanks for not closing the door completely. Lucas, you are my son. There will always be a small window open, but rebuilding what broke will take time. A lot of time. I know, and I am willing to wait." We ended the call shortly after. I did not feel the sharp pain I expected. Instead, I felt something like closure. My son was facing the consequences of his actions, learning hard but necessary lessons. Maybe someday we could have some kind of relationship, but if that did not happen, I would be okay anyway. I no longer needed his validation or love to feel complete. I had myself, and finally, that was enough. 6 months after starting my new life, I was sitting on my balcony one spring afternoon. The park below was full of families, children playing, couples walking. Arthur would be coming soon for our weekly walk. Sarah had called that morning to invite me to dinner with her and her family next weekend. The book club was planning a trip to attend a literary festival in the neighboring city. My calendar was full of plans, of life, of joy. I looked around my small apartment, my personal sanctuary, and smiled. I had lost a lot in those 10 dark years with Chloe and Lucas. Money, time, dignity, peace of mind. But what I had gained by freeing myself was priceless. I recovered my voice, my strength, my ability to choose my own path. I was no longer the Evelyn who allowed herself to be trampled. I was no longer the mother who sacrificed herself until she disappeared. I was simply Evelyn, a 63-year-old woman who had survived betrayal, who had found the courage to defend herself, and who now lived every day on her own terms. Some people might say I acted harshly, that I was cruel to kick my son and his wife out like that, but I knew the truth. It had not been cruelty. It had been justice. It had been self-love. It had been the decision of a woman who finally understood that she could not save others by destroying herself. The doorbell rang. It was Arthur, punctual as always, with that warm smile that made my days better. I put on my comfortable walking shoes, grabbed my jacket, and went out to meet him. As I closed the door of my apartment behind me, I thought about how far I had come. The past was past. The future shone with possibilities. And the present, this perfect moment, was completely mine.